Hey, this is the guy, and Logan Wilson has been traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Logan Wilson has been traded to Dallas Cowboys. In return, the Cincinnati Bengals get a seventh-round pick. What does this mean for this team, right? So it was not unexpected whatsoever. A few weeks prior to the trade, Logan Wilson demanded the trade out of Cincinnati. Reason being, he was benched in favor of Barrett Carter, the rookie. So the Bengals are rolling with their rookie linebackers now, Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight, who I will say they have done a better job than what some have expected them to do. But trading away a veteran, a captain that you voted for at the beginning of the season, trading away a captain will have some man, I'm not gonna say issues, but some problems in the locker room. You're going to lose a veteran leader that the Bengals. So Logan Wilson was drafted by the Bengals in 2020 out of Wyoming, and he had balled out the first 3-4 years he was here. The past 2 years have been a little rough, but that's because of injuries and stuff like that. So now he goes to a Dallas Cowboys team that needed that position at the linebacker spot, and he will get his starting job back over there in Dallas. So that was the right move. And the Bengals understood that heading in before the deadline that they had to move Logan Wilson, at least Logan Wilson, because the Bengals had a few guys that they could have traded. Cam Taylor-Britt has been benched multiple times. He has been inactive a couple of times already because he just hasn't played up to that level he played in 2022. So Cam Taylor-Britt was a trade deadline option. Trey Hendrickson was even a guy that could have been traded at the trade deadline. But the Bengals ultimately made the easy and right choice, trading away Logan Wilson to the Dallas Cowboys, and in return they get a seventh-round pick. So some Bengals fans are like, only a seventh-round pick. Well, Logan Wilson has been a fantastic player for this team, but unfortunately he has had a rough couple of seasons after these injuries. So I wish nothing but the best for him, because he goes to a Dallas team that much needed that position bad, and he's gonna hopefully go over there and restart and kind of revamp his career, kind of get that, kind of reignite the light, the engine there for him. So he goes to a Dallas team that needed that position, so that's good for him. So Logan Wilson, best of luck to you, man. I'll always remember that interception you had against the Titans in the divisional round. I'll never forget that moment, of course, being a kid out of Wyoming. But I'll never forget that divisional round interception against the Titans that gave the Bengals a great chance to win the game. They did. I'll never forget, unfortunately, and I will say this right now, that was not a holding in the Super Bowl. So if you know, you know. But Logan Wilson, best of luck in Dallas, and we had a great time here in Cincinnati for sure. So the Bengals are 3-6 at the bye. What's wrong, right? What's wrong with this team? The defense I'm going to say here is horrible. Like, I've sat here on this channel multiple times and said the Bengals defense is horrible. And this is a horrible stat. Like, you should never, no matter what level of football you play, you should never achieve this stat. What is that being? The Bengals allowed over 1,000 yards in 2 games. And might I add, those 2 games, those 2 teams that they played were the New York Jets and the Chicago Bears. This defense has struggled to tackle throughout the season. It may be a coaching issue, but this is a stage 1 fundamental of the game of football. So you were playing the pros. It is very frustrating to watch because most of these guys don't know how to tackle. Demetrius Knight is one of the better tackling defensive players on our team. But then there's Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart, he's a first-round pick, but he can't rush past the offensive line, and that is a liability because then offenses will just rush the ball towards him, and then they notice that he doesn't get past the offensive line. You're a first-round pick, my guy. You're a first-round pick, so you got to do something. I know Shamar Stewart hasn't played all throughout the season. He was injured. He missed like 3-4 games because of an ankle injury, so that's not completely fair for me to say. But then at the same time, you're a first-round pick. The Bengals, you held out so you get the big bucks. You get the big bucks, but you're not producing what you're getting paid. That's an issue. So, of course, maybe nothing to overreact on because he is a rookie. He's still learning. But if you can't get past the O-line, then that makes you a liability. And then not only makes you a liability, then you're just not going to see much playing time on the field, and I'm sure he doesn't want that. But the offense can only do so much, and it's kind of ridiculous, right? The Bengals allowed the New York Jets at the time were 0-7. They allowed the New York Jets to go into Cincinnati and score 39 points to win the game. The final score to that one was 39-38. Justin Fields had probably one of the best games of his career, probably not the best. The Jets look like they have been winning games all throughout the season. And then you fast forward to the next week, you lose to the Bears 47-42. Like, if you do the math correctly, you allow over 80 points in 2 games, along with over 1,000 yards in 2 games. while the offense is producing these generational numbers. This is what we saw last year when Joe Burrow was at an MVP caliber, and he was still keeping them in games. They kind of sort of won games because at this point in time, the Bengals were 4-5 instead of 3-6. They are 3-6 right now. Last year they were 4-5, but it is a problem. The offense can only do so much. Joe Flacco was putting up generational numbers with this offense, and Joe Flacco, who the Bengals traded for a couple weeks ago, as we all know, because Burrow's injury. But Joe Flacco was putting up generational numbers along with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. T. Higgins has scored a touchdown every home game this season. Jamar Chase has scored multiple touchdowns and has put up over 90 yards per game since Joe Flacco has became the quarterback. But Chase Brown has been running the football effectively ever since Pittsburgh. So the offense could only do so much, and it's really, really frustrating. So what can you do to fix this problem? You are now at the point in the season where you pretty much cannot lose more than 2 games if you want to have any shot at a playoff spot. So what do you do now? This is a coaching problem. So the Bengals coaches need to figure this out, and this is also a locker room problem. There's no leader in the locker room as of right now. You need a player that can step up and be a vocal leader because this team is very, very young. And so you don't have a veteran leader like Logan Wilson, who was there, and he was a great veteran leader in that locker room, but who he now traded away. So that is a problem. But Zach Taylor also doesn't help either, right? His job is to put everyone in a position to succeed, and he hasn't. I'm not going to say he's done that. He hasn't done it, but he hasn't done it in the best way possible, if that makes any sense. There's a very great possibility, depending on how this last half of the season goes, that we have seen Zach Taylor in his last season as a head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. And you could say the same thing with Al Golden. He could be a one and done. Al Golden, the defensive coordinator, we all thought last year that Lou Anarumo was the problem because he wouldn't play these young guys. He was favoring the veterans, and the defense struggled. It wasn't Lou Anarumo because look at him in Indianapolis. The Colts sit in an 8-2, 7-2 record with Lou Anarumo and have one of the best defenses in the league. It was not Lou Anarumo's problem. This defense, and now Al Golden plays the younger guys. I will say they are doing a lot. They are doing a better job, like I said, Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter. But Lou Anarumo wasn't the problem. You fired him, and now he's succeeding in a way that we didn't think was possible over in Indianapolis. So Lou Anarumo wasn't the problem. Al Golden's job may be on the line as well. This may be his only year as a defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. Even if Zach Taylor stays, I think there will be a defensive coordinator change heading into this offseason. So the Bengals defense has struggled so heavily. It is a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem. And historically, this Bengals defense improves after week 9, and it's kind of a cool thing. So hopefully that's like the trend that they're going towards again this year. But if not, then we're in for a rough season. The Bengals have a rough back half of the season. So it'll be interesting to see how they can pan this out. And that just leads into, will Joe Burrow return sooner than expected, right? You heard me say Joe Burrow he returned to practice yesterday, Monday. Returned to practice for the first time only 2 months after his surgery, which is crazy to say because they expected him to be out till about week 16, and he could return on Thanksgiving night in 3 weeks. Will the Bengals see Joe Burrow sooner than expected? I'm going to say yes. But these next 2 games will be very pivotal to if Joe Burrow will return or not. The Bengals play Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. The week after that, they go home to play the New England Patriots. And man, oh man, that'll be a tough game to win because the Patriots are on a heater as well. So if the Bengals need to win these 2 games, Joe Burrow wants to return. So give him what he wants because, and I'm going to sit here and say Joe Flacco hasn't done anything bad at all. It's not like we're rushing Joe Flacco to get out because that's not what we want. Joe Flacco's done a great job at the quarterback position for Joe Burrow stepping in since that injury. Since, I guess, Jake Browning was benched, but stepping in for Jake Browning, so Joe Flacco's done a great job. He has thrown multiple touchdowns and multiple different receivers in that Jets and Bears game. He did a great job in both those games. His debut against Green Bay was great. That Pittsburgh Steelers game was great. He had a touchdown to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So Joe Flacco, it's not like he's done horribly. It's not like we need Joe Burrow to come back. But it's just, it'll all rely on this defense because we know what this offense can do. But can the defense step up and produce better numbers so the Bengals can possibly see Joe Burrow back sooner than expected? So that being said, that's all we talked about. Logan Wilson's trade, how bad this defense is. Once again, unfortunately, it is a unfortunate thing because you have an offense putting up generational numbers. And will Joe Burrow return sooner than expected? And if he does, will it matter at that point? So that being said, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching. This is your Cincy Guy.